Yo, what's up, guys? This is Dopely speaking. So today I'm gonna tell you something about the Japanese visa policy towards the foreigners, right? So many people have been talking about this topic recently, but we know that on October 16th, Japan has really tightened its business management visa policy, right? Which means because I cannot say about a percentage precisely, right? But I guess more than half of them of these applicants of the business management visa of Japan are Chinese. Chinese from the CCP country, the PRC. So basically, my title today is Japan has largely tightened its business management visa policy. CCP Chinese have nowhere to go. Well, what a sad story, I just want to be clear that I do not discriminate against my own people. I love my own people. However, we're talking about, objectively, the Chinese who live in the CCP-controlled China, which is PRC China, right? They're really in the big dilemma, right? Chinese economy is actually growing slowly. The rate of growth has slowed down from the previous decade or something like that because, in the 2010s, even from early 2000, right? The GDP growth is more than 10% per year. But now we're talking about 2.4%, maybe just 1%, because you can always be suspicious about the numbers that the Chinese government provided because just authoritative government, they can smear the number, they can cook the book, they're deceitful, right? You can never always totally trust them. It is growing, but growing at a much slower pace, right? While you see all the prosperous facade of the Chinese society, you see the high-speed railway, you see many foreigners like Chinese, CCP shells, they're saying, wow, how blue the sky is, right? This and that, We all get used to, all the praises that the foreign influencers in China, right? Praising about the Chinese government, how good the country is, how peaceful their society is, this and that. But let me tell you, can you imagine yourself live in a country where, well, on the surface, right, you enjoy the peaceful lifestyle and you have a very strict gun control, right? So because in China, even the airsoft gun is deemed as something illegal. Not even mentioned about the real guns. Even the airsoft gun, the BB gun, right, is illegal. So you can see from the surface, it must be peaceful, right? You have the monitors, facial recognition function everywhere, right? You do not have a lot of privacy there. You enjoy the so-called freedom there, but you have no freedom to a lot of countries. You cannot travel to a lot of countries. For example, Japan has a very high requirement, high threshold for the tourist visa for Chinese visiting Japan, right? You should have a certain amount of money, you should have a certain amount of poverty in order to apply for that. You should have a stable job, this and that. Not to mention America, the B1 and B2 visa is very, very strict, hellish strict to Chinese citizens, right? Well, they're not even citizens, right? But they use the word citizens, right? So the thing is that you can live in China, peacefully, but can you imagine that you and your descendants cannot travel overseas as usually as most citizens in other countries do, right? Can you imagine that? You're just encaged by the Communist Party, just like you live in a utopian society that is created by the Communist Party, like a Truman Show, right? Can you imagine that? So this life is not normal there, right? So that's why, over the decades, right, so many Chinese people are eager to rush out. We have lineage, right, lineage, something like that. It means that you run to Japan, right? Run, R-U-N, it means run in English, right? They use the same pronunciation. So, 润美, it means you're running to America. 润欧, it means you're running to Europe. 润日, it means you're running to Japan. But now running to America, it seems always impossible. Seems kind of impossible since the Donald Trump government generation 2, right? Version 2, 2.0. And for going to Europe, right, you see the decline of European economy because Europe is just like a pie, between America and China, for the geopolitical struggle. So Europe is losing its market share. Europe has less and less market share because China and America is on the rise for its industrial power, right? So now many people are afraid that maybe their children in Europe, they're speaking a language that is not mainstream anymore, right? For example, German sounds cool, French sounds cool, but what German or French sounds as cool as it is now, like 50 years from now, right? Maybe the whole world speaks just two languages, English and Chinese. So that's the reality. So the thing is that where else can Chinese go? Chinese have a higher, now, if you want to settle in Japan, you either marry a Japanese wife or a Japanese husband. That's the easiest way. But for some people, they have a language barrier there. And love is something subjective. You can never control the outcome, right? You can try to search a bride. You can try to find your love mate, but the outcome is not a guarantee. And we're talking about business investment plan, right? Before, it's just a $250,000 Chinese RMB, which is not a lot. It's just like, I can say 40,000, like 50,000, 40,000, somewhere between like 40,000 to 50,000 US dollars, 50,000 US dollars. It's not a lot of money to start the business visa, but now they have 6 times the whole investment plan. So now we're talking about 1.5 million Chinese yuan to start the business, and you have to hire a local person there. Either that person should be a Japanese citizen, ethnically Japanese, or that person have to be a permanent resident of Japan. That is extremely hard because you have to pay this person money. Regardless, this person is really serving a function in your company. Well, this is good for Japan though, because it just filters out those people who are cheaters, right? Who just want to use the social benefit system. They do not have a knack of business. These people should be eliminated from the business investment market because they're destroying Japanese economy, right? But, that leaves so many Chinese nowhere to go. What's next for them, right? Thailand? Singapore maybe even have a higher stance than Japan has, right? So here's my concern. The CCP, actually is, paradoxical. Like I would feel like the CCP would be so afraid of so many people who hate CCP, but they want to run out. But there's no way for them to run. So my question is, will CCP open up its door more and trying to, for example, just give Japanese citizen like 2 years visa free, in China, like 5 years free visa free entry, this and that, in exchange of more of a lenient entry requirement to Japan for Chinese citizens, right? If that's a situation, you can just buy a house in Japan because Japan allows foreigners to buy its property without becoming a Japanese citizen, right? So then, for example, if you live in Shanghai and you are, afraid that someday, something might happen and that will stop you from going abroad ever, you can just buy a house in Japan, and then every year you can live in Japan for 2 or 3 months, like a visa free, things like that. And that would be great. That's how some Americans are doing that, right? And for some other Europeans as well, right? So I feel like it's because the CCP, it's so powerful, yet so evil. I can say it's because that, from the surface, it's becoming more and more powerful, right? With all the military technology, this and that. But its citizens do not have a lot of freedom, do not have a lot of human rights to travel freely. Or maybe sometimes it's not even because of CCP itself, it's the hatred towards the CCP from other countries that prevent the Chinese citizens of entering their borders, right? So the Chinese citizens, now we're visa, I'm not we, right? It's like the Chinese citizens, they are visa free to Afghanistan, to Thailand. Thailand is okay, right? Thailand is not a bad country. I cannot say it's not the best in the world, but it's not a bad country. You go to some Sharia, So basically with the Chinese visa, you can only enter those adventure zones in the world. So you will be looking at an adventurist, right? Not a traveler. With American visa or Japanese visa or a Korean visa, you can travel to Italy, you can travel to France, visa free. You can travel to a lot of developed nations visa free, as well as the developing countries. So that's the difference. Okay, so I feel like it's a double-edged sword for the Chinese, for the Japanese economy, because on one hand, I would feel like that will really filter out those fatherland people, right, who just use their, they apply for the business visa and then they're naturalized, and after their naturalization of Japanese nationality, and then they begin to accept the social welfare. They were not working. This is not right? They're exploiting the social welfare system. They're actually the cheaters, right? But on the other hand, I feel like, Japan does need a lot of foreign laborers. Because when I'm living in Japan, I live in Tokyo for about half a year. When I was living in Japan, I feel like many Turks, right? Turkish people, they're doing the house demolishing job. They're doing the house construction job, right? We do not have enough Japanese local labor force to work on that. A lot of the 7-Eleven workers, a lot of the convenience store workers, they are Indian people. Of course, many Chinese or Korean as well, but most of them, like 60% of them are foreigners, gaikokujin, right? Just like 40% or less are Japanese locals. Think about a lot of the hot spring hotel in the mountains, right? They go broke because they do not have enough people to work for them, and they do not have enough travelers. So Japan does need to open up its borders gradually, but scientifically. So I feel like, I don't know how you guys think about that, right? I feel like it's a double-edged sword for Japan. So let's wait and see how it happens. But I also feel so pity. I also feel so sorry for the Chinese nationals, for the Chinese citizens who are always rejected by other country. But in China, well, you have the economy development, but you do not have a lot of personal freedom, especially political freedom and the freedom to voice out your own opinions. Even, for example, I used to be a musician back in China, right? If you can include something like a kiss, Kiss, right, in your lyrics, and that will be censored because the authorities of Chinese government think that kissing is a kind of pornographic activity. That's weird, right? That's absurd. Okay, anyway, how you guys think about this? Where do you suggest Chinese people go, right, to run away from the CCP's ruling, right? Anything, leave a comment. I welcome your comment, okay? So this is for this episode. I will see you tonight at 8 p.m. Thank you.